And you can see right behind us, I mean, all this activity that's going on. You can see folks that are being apprehended. And the thing that we are looking to do is really shine a light on how what is happening right here in this moment. This is turning every town in America into a border town. And it's the folks that are running away from Border Patrol that you really need to be concerned with. This is the distraction from the really nefarious trafficking of narcotics, but also violent criminals, sex offenders that are coming in at historic rates.
Known or suspected terrorists.
Exactly.
That we have caught over 50 of just this year.
Exactly. This is the real threat. This is what we need to be focusing on. And again, we're here at the behest of the Democrats, who wanted to host a select committee hearing in the field at the border, but they don't want to talk about the border. They want to talk about green energy and infrastructure. But as Vice completely pointed out so clearly, if they were serious about infrastructure, they would be dealing with the crisis here so that these communities could actually replace and repair and bolster and build the infrastructure that they need to keep their communities safe. Instead, they're using that money to deal with the crisis that's unfolding in their backyard. It's absolutely a shame. So we're going to be out all night hanging out with our Border Patrol agents, really understanding the current situation on the ground, because it is an ever-changing situation. But we wanted to give you guys a front row seat into what is happening, an unfiltered view that you won't see on the mainstream media. But now you know just as well as us that every town in America is a border town, and this crisis, it's real. So, all right, y'all take care.
Okay, welcome. Wednesday, 22 June, year of our Lord, 2022. Today, the morning show, we were in Mexico across from Eagle Pass, Texas. Also on the border of Yuma, we had Todd Benson, and we talked about the numbers, the scale of this. We're honored to have one of the most dynamic congressmen in Congress today in the House today, Cammack from Florida. Congressman, the first question I think people have to ask is, you're in Florida, you're one of this rising generation of leaders. What got you down? What took you to the border? I know you know Border Patrol. You've been very engaged in this issue. What got you down there in the middle of the night?
Well, it's good to see you, Steve. And I'll tell you, that is not my first trip to the border, because as a member of Homeland Security Committee, we have jurisdiction over the border. And when you talk about all the threats that America faces today, I mean, you could talk about China, you could talk about our debt, you can talk about, heck, the leftist agenda that is a threat to America as we know it. Nothing quite compares to what we're seeing at the border. And so going down there, that was part of my role as Homeland Security, but also I serve as the counterpart to AOC on the Select Committee for the Economy. And Vicente Gonzalez got the great idea for the Select Committee on the Economy to host a committee hearing at the border in his district, but not to talk about border security. No, they wanted to talk about green energy and investments in communities with green energy. I couldn't believe it. This was Christmas Day in my book. We actually were able to get the Democrats down to the border that are on this committee and be 3.5 miles away from the Ganahl processing facility, to where in their eyes, there's still kids in cages, but they don't want to talk about that anymore. And so we were down there for Select Committee on the Economy, a field hearing in which we absolutely destroyed all of their arguments about green energy, and then of course kept the narrative pushed on the border and the crisis that's unfolding there. But then I think that it was really important, and I do this every time I'm down there, I'll go out with Texas DPS, with our Border Patrol agents, and I'll work a shift with them. So that was my first night there that you saw that you guys played. The following night, I went out and it was probably about 4:30 in the morning that I got back. We worked an entire shift with Texas DPS out in Roma, La Jolla, La Brea, Mission, McAllen, of course. And we were apprehending upwards of 100 people in a group. We watched the cartels as they unloaded and staged. Of course, another unfun fact about this whole situation is that the cartels, they use drones to monitor our activities and our footprint. We do not have the luxury to do the same because the FAA and the Biden administration won't let us use drones. And so we're not only dealing with these large groups of people, we're dealing with runners. So in Roma, Texas, I was with Border Patrol at, like I said, 4:30 in the morning, and we were witnessing runners. And these are single agents by themselves having to deal with these groups of over 100 people. The crisis is getting worse. The drugs coming into our communities are they're multiplying. They're becoming more lethal. And all I can say is every town in America is a border town. And if we don't secure the damn border, we will lose our country as we know it. This is an invasion.
I just want to go back. I want to make sure this audience understands this. You would work full days or do these hearings on the economy, select committee on the economy, which they want to talk about Green New Deal. Then at night, you would go out with Border Patrol or Texas DPS and you're in that section of the Rio Grande Valley from McAllen all the way up to La Jolla. I mean, we broadcast there virtually every day or every other day. So our audience is very familiar. You would actually go on the nighttime patrols with Customs and Border and with Texas DPS?
Yes. It's actually, I know it sounds a little crazy, and you don't get a whole lot of sleep. I think we're running on about 2-3 hours of sleep when we do this, but it's so important because how, as a member of Congress, can you truly understand what our Border Patrol agents and Texas DPS is going through unless you actually walk in their footsteps? There's so many members that go down there for the photo op and they see what's happening, but then they get to go back to their hotel and sleep comfortably for the night. I want to get out there with boots on the ground, really understand the challenges that they're facing because it is such a complicated, such a big issue that is littered with public safety issues, with humanitarian issues, with national security implications. There's so many layers to this. And so my goal is to basically work a shift in every sector along the southwest border before this year is out. Because like I said, the border, it is our top issue. We have to secure the border if we are going to protect the sovereignty of this nation. And I couldn't be more proud of our Border Patrol agents and the Texas DPS agents that we work with. A huge shout out to Lieutenant Chris Olivares. He has been a saint when it comes to actually working with us and letting us do this. So huge shout out to Texas DPS as well as our Border Patrol and the Border Patrol Council.
I just want to make sure we get this right and fair. You reached out to the Democratic members you were with to join you or to go with you and to go on these patrols, and they did not go. They turned you down.
They turned us down. We invited the Democratic members to participate. It even went so far as to ask during the committee hearing, which I would encourage everyone to watch the hearing that took place in McAllen, Texas. We asked, do you think that the border is secure? There were actually Democrats who raised their hand and stated that they thought that the border was secure, despite the fact that we just pointed out 3.5 miles down the road from us to the south of where we were having that hearing, literally an 11-minute drive by Google Maps standards, that there were over 2,400 people that had been apprehended the day before and were being housed in tents in this facility. And they don't care to understand what's happening in our own country. They don't care to understand how that's impacting communities because these people aren't being sent back. They're being released into our communities across America. There was a 14-year-old girl that I encountered, we picked up on the very first night. She was leading a group of unaccompanied minors, a 14-year-old. She spoke perfect English. She said, oh, I've done this trip multiple times. I've come here. I'm going to go meet up with my aunt in Tennessee. Now, is that true? Who knows? But I can tell you, she was very cool, calm, collected. She knew exactly what to do, the procedures, the policies. When she was talking to me and giving me the rundown of how she had been walking for 2 months, it struck me as odd because she was freshly showered, had no dirt under her fingernails. Her clothes were crystal clean, smelled like Febreze. Her hair was washed. You could tell this was a person who had just quite literally showered. And I had some of my Florida sheriffs with me because, like I say, every town in America is a border town. Our sheriffs deal with narcotics in our community. They were with me. They're picking up on the same issues too. They're like, wow, these people aren't like covered in dirt. You know, it's not like they've trekked for months. They're freshly showered. What's going on here? Clean clothes. And she was just dropping she showed me her documents. She dropped all her jewelry and all her shoelaces and everything into the bag. She knew what to expect. That tells me that these folks, this whole operation, it is by design. There's no chaos to this. This is the cartels manufacturing an entire network of people that they want to smuggle across the United States because they make $32 million minimum a day doing this, which equates to over $1 billion a month. And that doesn't even include the narcotics that they are making a ton of money off of. So this whole issue, Steve, you and I could do an entire show and then some on this issue, and I could tell you stories that make your stomach turn.
No, I think we want to get you for a special because you're one of these dynamic leaders that actually have thought through solutions. But I got to ask you just a practical question on the politics of it. The Hill newspaper today, the lead story on the Hill is the Democrats are now in shock that one of their major constituencies, the Hispanic and Latino community, is leaving them in droves. They think they may lose that 55% of the Hispanic and Latino community could vote for Republicans, could vote MAGA this November, which would eviscerate the Democratic Party. Just while you're down there, here's what I'll get. Maya Flores, who will be on the show tomorrow, or maybe Friday. I think we've got Myra. She just won this upset election down there, part of the Rio Grande Valley, not the part you were in. When the Democrats are there and you're having these committee meetings, they're talking about the Green New Deal and all this esoteric stuff. Don't they realize the tsunami that's about to hit them from hardworking Hispanic Americans that have essentially been abused on this? I mean, they're the ones that take the brunt of this invasion. So I don't understand the tone deafness in the politics of the Democrats you're down there with, Congressman.
No, I mean, think about this. Big government liberals, right? The limousine liberals that believe in this one size fits all approach to government. That is exactly how they approach elections and politics. They think they can just broad brush across an entire group of people and that they're all going to think the exact same way. They don't take into account the fact that Hispanics are largely conservative. They're Catholic, they are pro-life, they're family-oriented, extraordinarily hardworking. These are people that really belong in the Republican Party because these are their principles, these are their values, and they're starting to vote their values. And so what a slap in the face to the Hispanic community that the Democrats think that they own the Hispanic vote. This is why the stereotype the Democrats have is so far removed, but not just on Hispanics, but it's Americans in general. I think the Democrats, deep down, they know they've lost this election in so many ways. They know they're going to take a shellacking that they have never seen. And at this point, they're just throwing anything they can at the wall, trying to make people feel guilty through all this nonsense about pronouns and privilege. And the real privilege is the liberal privilege when you actually, as a liberal, are racist by making assumptions about a group of people, and then you are insulted when they don't go your way. Myra Flores is a shining example of what the future of the Republican Party looks like. I was honored to support her early on. I was honored to sit and meet her family yesterday. In fact, her uncle, we were in her office talking, and her uncle and Myra and I, we took a photo, and he pulled up his pants and showed he was wearing a pair of cowboy boots that said, "Make America Great Again." And I am telling you, the folks that they love America, they are MAGA, and I absolutely adore Myra and her family. I'm so looking forward to working with her.
Congressman, I know you got to bounce. Just one last question. You use the word invasion. If we put our shoulder to the wheel and do what we have to do in November, you'll be on Homeland Security as a member of the majority party. Mayorkas, and what this, you said something there that we've talked about in the show. They talk about Title 42 and they're disorganized, they're not planned. When you look through this, all the way up from the Darien Gap, all the way to taking them deeply interior of the country. And this is not to demonize the people coming across. They're actually making rational decisions. This is about our government. What is your recommendation to leadership about what needs to happen at Homeland Security in getting to the bottom and stopping this invasion of our country?
Oh, it's easy. First, you secure the border. You do that through a policy change. We stop accepting, processing, and releasing. Right now, we effectively have catch and release. We reemploy the Trump MPP program, the Remain in Mexico program. We uphold Title 42, but we also have legislation that deems 3,000 unsustainable because we lose operational control of the border at 3,000. So that will be enforced. We're going to impeach Alejandro Mayorkas because he has failed miserably to uphold his oath of office, and he has put Americans at risk, so he will be gone. I think that we need to provide the policies to our Border Patrol agents because that's really what they need. They need the policy that says they can do their job without fear of retribution or consequence from the administration coming after them for simply enforcing the laws on the books. So we're going to have our agents' backs. We're going to give them a policy that they can uphold. We're going to give them the force multipliers in the wall and all the technology capabilities. We're going to allow them to use drones, and we're going to go hard because this cannot stand, will not stand. If you don't have secure borders, you don't have a secure nation. You've got to secure the damn border and do it now.
Congressman, appreciate the time. How do people follow you on social media and how they learn more about you? What site can they go to find out more about you?
You can check us out on all the social media platforms. It's just Rep. Cammack or cammack.house.gov. And of course, we are very active on social media. In fact, at 4:30 in the morning, I did a Facebook Live on my Cat Cammack Facebook page where you can see some of the runners and some of the folks that we were apprehending. I encourage you guys to check it out and, of course, share. So thank you for that.
Congressman Cammack, one of the rising leaders in the MAGA movement and the Republican Party. Thank you. Honored to have you on, and great job down the border. Real inspirational.
Thanks, Steve. Talk to you soon.
This is that new generation that's coming up. We're going to go to Colorado now. Let's go to Heidi Ganahl. She's running in this Republican primary for governor. Heidi, you've got a great piece up on War Room about education, about your policies. Walk us through what's the driving force of this. And I thought Colorado, since the Democrats took it over, is like a paradise. They keep telling everybody that Colorado is the model for the country. Ever since your governor and these guys put all that money in and flipped it, that Colorado's the purple paradise. I take it you disagree.
Oh my gosh, Steve. Well, first, thanks for having me. I so appreciate it and highlighting what's happening here in Colorado. Our beautiful state is getting decimated by this governor, and he is a far left liberal activist. He's not this moderate that he pretends to be. And we have skyrocketing crime. Our kids are in crisis. We have one of the highest drug addiction rates for kids, one of the highest suicide rates for kids. 60% of our kids cannot read, write, or do math. So first and foremost, I'm a mom of 4. I have twins that are 10, a 12-year-old and a 26-year-old. And I want to fight to get our beautiful state back, but also get our kids' future back. Because right now here in Colorado, it looks really bleak. So I'm running for governor. I'm in a very, very heated race with someone who is being supported by the Democrats. They've put about $3 million into our governor's primary race to take me out because they don't want to take me on this fall.
The Democrats have put $3 million into the Republican race. This is a new thing. They're going around the country to take out MAGA candidates. Tell our audience about that. What happened here?
So the Democrats and Jared Polis put money into dark money groups, and then they run ads supporting my opponent because they know he's a weak candidate and he can't win. So they want him to win the primary. It's easier for them to spend $3 to $5 million in the primary than to put $30 to $50 million in the general election. And the polling looks really good for us against Jared Polis. It's the year of the woman here in Colorado. As you see with Kat, we've got amazing women leaders across this country in the Republican Party now. And I've got a really good shot of taking out Jared Polis in the fall. But I've got to get through the primary in 8 days. I need your help, Steve. We are in the fight for our lives. And the Democrats know how to play this game. And we have got to pull this out in 8 days, or we don't have a chance to take back Colorado in the fall.
I want to get to the details campaign in a second. Your piece talks about school choice. Isn't the hang up with school choice? You just talked about 60% of the kids can't read or write. Isn't the problem with school choice? It's a nice concept to think about when you're a middle class, a white person, but it's going to leave the minority community behind. One of the issues we have is that they're quite frankly so abused in the school system right now because they get the worst of everything. But if you go to school choice, they're really going to get left behind. How do you get people comfortable that won't happen?
Well, the most important thing we can do, Steve, is give power back to parents. Right now, we have school choice in Colorado if you can move to a different zip code or if you can afford to go to a private school, religious school, charter school, or charter schools or public schools. But at the end of the day, it's the poorest in our society in Colorado that can't afford to do that need the most help. 5%, only 5% of Hispanic and African American kids in Denver public schools can read at grade level. That does not paint a very bright future for those kids. And one of the things I've found is that the most important thing we can do is give parents more control over their kids' education. Right now, there is a lot of nonsense happening in the classrooms. Part of why I moved a few years ago was because my kids came home from school one day and told me this story about a play that they'd seen at school. that was about a bird, a Dr. Raven, that did a procedure on one of the birds that didn't want to be a boy or girl anymore, and that it was okay to be confused about what sex you were, and teaching my kids about sex education. And they were in first grade. My twins are in first grade. So I got ticked off. I started to open a charter school. I got 700 kids signed up for a classical education charter school, and I'd been involved in opening other ones. And we got turned down by the Boulder Valley School District because we were loosely connected to Hillsdale. It's where we trained our classical education teachers. It was, we got called every name in the book, and 700 kids didn't get the option that they deserved. So we moved across town so that my kids could, and I want that option for every single kid in Colorado.
Once again, give the details. How do people find out more about you, more about this campaign? We'll have you back on when we spend more time, but walk through, where do they go? How do they find out about your events? How do they find out more about you?
Thanks, Steve. It's HeidiForGov.com. So HeidiForGov.com. We're all over social media and on Truth and Getter, Facebook, all those platforms. And we're in the fight for our lives in the next 8 days. Would love to get people engaged, involved. We need help on social media. We've got to get better at fighting back in the Republican Party on Twitter and some of these other platforms. So would love your posse to get behind us and help us get across the finish line next week.
We'll take care of this today. Heidi, thank you so much for coming on and joining us.
Thanks, Steve. Have a great day.
Thanks, sure. I'm going to talk to my producers. Let's make sure we get on the morning show the next couple of days. There's a big fight out in Colorado. They talk about women taking the leadership in this entire movement, the awakening of America. Two of my favorite, Dr. Naomi Wolf and Captain Maureen Bannon, are about to follow. Do we have a cold open? I want to play the cold open for Dr. Naomi Wolf, and then we'll bring her back if we go to the break. Let's play the entire thing.
It's Walter Isaacson. Good to talk to you again. Your company, with your partner BioNTech and Moderna, the other company, have both pioneered the use of messenger RNA, which can easily be reprogrammed every time the spike protein of a coronavirus evolves or changes. Do you think we're going to get updated mRNA vaccines every season that'll be directed to each new variation of the coronavirus? And will we have to take those shots every year?
I'm almost certain about it. I say almost certain because, of course, regulators have the final say in all of that. But that's the beauty of mRNA. You can adapt your vaccine just by changing the sequencing, which is a very minor change, either manufacturing or in the properties of the vaccine, safety or efficacy, but can make a huge difference in the way that responds to the virus. So for this reason, I'm very confident that we will be able to respond very, very fast to every new variant.
All right, let's turn to Mike Barnacle, who had a question yesterday about the COVID vaccine that he just couldn't get an answer to. So we saved it for today, Mike. Go for it.
Dr. Barola, the question that I was seeking an answer to is pretty simple. The vaccines for children 5 and younger, is the composition of that vaccine different than the Pfizer vaccine for adults? Mm-hmm.
The composition is not different, but the dosage is very, very different. The kids are getting 1/10 of the dose that an adult will get. 1/10, I repeat. That's in the case of the Pfizer vaccine, of course, right? So it's 3 micrograms instead of 30 that the adults are getting. And we were able to be able to demonstrate that with this very minimal dose, we are having very good tolerability profile. So we are minimizing fevers or other reactions that vaccines can create to kids. We create very minimum this type of reaction. And at the same time, we are giving very, very good protection.
So, Mr. Borla, obviously Omicron and its various variants have become the dominant strains of COVID over the last handful of months. It looks to continue that way, at least for now. Give us an update, if you will, about Omicron-specific vaccines. Is that what we're going to see going forward? And how are you trying to stay one step ahead of a virus that is mutating constantly?
We are going to see Omicron-specific vaccines. The FDA has called the major committee of experts for a meeting on this month, June 28th. Those experts, together with FDA, we will also present our positions over there. They will make some decisions as to what they think is the best for public health to see in the next vaccines. Whatever the decisions that we'll make, or whatever the possible, I think, options that they're going to elaborate, we are ready for them. We have developed monovalent vaccines and multivalent vaccines in higher doses, lower doses, and they are all waiting so that we can hear what they think is the best way to forward, so that we can provide a vaccine that it is way better than the current one.
I got to tell you, Dr. Wolf, I don't want to pick. Is that a Bond villain, or is that really a CEO of a major company? What is going on there?
Well, a lot of things that need to be followed up on and unpacked. He said just now that children, or the population that they're aiming to get authorization for now, which is 6 months to under fives, are going to get 3 micrograms. But yesterday, the statement was that children, this new group of children and babies, were going to get 50 to 100 micrograms. So that definitely has to be pinned down. And even though it's a tenth of what grown-ups get.
Hang on. Let's take a break. We're going to get into all this. We got plenty of time on the other side. Short commercial break. Dr. Naomi Wolf here are going to break all this down, but they're obsessed with getting the shot into kids under 5. We're going to take it all on next in the War Room.
They put Peter Navarro in leg irons for simply doing his constitutional duty. Now they want to put Peter in prison for standing up for Donald Trump. Please go to Amazon right now and order Taking Back Trump's America to help fund Peter's legal defense. Taking Back Trump's America provides a critical MAGA blueprint to put Trump back in the White House in 2024. Buy Taking Back Trump's America on Amazon today. If they can put Peter Navarro in prison, they can come for all of us.
War Room Battleground with Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, welcome back. We've got Dr. Naomi Wolf. So, Dr. Wolf, they were obviously trying to do some cleanup today on Morning Joe. Walk me through with the CEO, and I know he's your favorite CEO. Walk me through. They had put out something, or was actually a clip we played that was off Morning Joe yesterday that had him doing the higher dosage. I just want to make sure we get straight for the audience.
Yeah, well, on Morning Joe yesterday, the clip stated that children were going to get 150 micrograms, respectively, and I was startled and I reacted live, or maybe it was the day before, and Cameron checked it, and those were the numbers, in fact, and that's not what he's saying now. But I also want to tell parents, don't relax, because that 3 micrograms, they're going to be giving it to a 6-month-old baby if this is authorized. That's the same amount that an 11-year-old is getting until the last day of his 11th year. And obviously a tiny 6-month-old baby is not the same size or weight as a big 11-year-old. So this is very disturbing as well. But I want to go on to other things, if I may, because I think they're showing he's starting to reveal, what the big picture is. And so let me step back and talk about what is clearly happening. I got deplatformed early on and made a lot of fun of by big tech companies because I quoted Moderna's website saying just what you heard Bourla saying, which is the beauty of these vaccines is that they can be updated continually by only a minor change. And that is literally what I quoted on the Moderna website as their appeal to investors, that unlike traditional vaccines, you get one injection, that's it, you're immune. These can have software upgrades, and they literally use that language as a metaphor. So I always knew, and I warned people, that this was a physiological platform, essentially, for updates that they were planning to come all the time. And that's exactly what he's rolling out. And I just want to tell you, I started to talk about this the last time I was on the show. The lipid nanoparticle platform that is used in mRNA vaccines also provides a basis for CRISPR gene editing. And that is very concerning, because what it means is that the lipid nanoparticles that are designed to go throughout our bodies. I'm looking right now at an it's Avanti lipids, and it says fatty acid distribution. This stuff is designed, it says brain, heart, liver, designed to go throughout our bodies, right? That is also the basis, and this is an article called CRISPR-Cas9 Genome Editing Using Targeted Lipo-Nanoparticles for Cancer Therapy, and this is November of 2021 in Science Advances, and they point out that the same lipid nanoparticles can be sent throughout the body or targeted as a basis for CRISPR gene editing. And this is very new. They're very excited about it, but CRISPR gene editing is the baby of Bill Gates. He wants it. He wants to roll it out. It's his favorite technology, and it basically creates a platform, these lipid nanoparticles, for gene editing that can be gene editing in vivo, is what this says, targeted gene editing of non-cancerous tissues. So you can do anything according to this, at least hypothetical. The technology is still very new, but that too uses these lipid nanoparticles as a delivery system. The other thing that, and so my concern is that, indeed, as he said, you've got the basis now, and they're just going to change it and change it and change it, and now be able to do other things like targeted gene editing. And the other thing I want to tell you is that I warned that lipid nanoparticles are solid at room temperature and body temperature, but liquid only when they're kept in very cold storage. So this also from the National Library of Medicine, role of ionizable lipids in SARS-CoV-2 vaccines as revealed by molecular dynamic simulations. They point out that these are the first mRNA vaccines to receive approval, and they include these lipid nanoparticles, ionizable lipids, but they say the mRNA molecule is very fragile, so they require very low handling temperatures for long-term storage. Bear with me, and it's -90 to -80 Celsius for the Pfizer and BioNTech vaccine. And then they say the mRNA molecules are believed to be stabilized by the presence of ionized lipid nanoparticles, but the exact function of the ionized lipid nanoparticles and the internal structure of the LNPs are currently unknown. And then just one more quote about how experimental this is. It was suggested that the RNA-containing lipid nanoparticles have an IL, meaning ionizable lipid-rich core. They're pH sensitive. They destabilize during endosome maturation. At present, the structure of LNPs and the mechanism of RNA release have yet to be determined.
Yeah.
With atomistic resolution, we basically don't know. They conclude there is no atomistic understanding of how individual lipids affect LNP structure and RNA stabilization. And then I will finish, I promise. They warn that one version of the lipid nanoparticles, and this is on the manufacturer's website, back on Avanti Polar Lipids, becomes absorbs moisture, becomes a gel when it is not frozen, and that it's highly become gummy upon opening the container. This could result in hydrolysis or oxidation of the material. Again, these are early signals, but what you need to take away is these lipid nanoparticles are totally experimental. They're experimental in the mRNA vaccines. They're experimental in CRISPR. No one really knows how they work or if they work or what's going to happen to them over time. They become gummy in one iteration when they're not kept at super cold temperatures. They become solids when they're not kept at super cold temperatures in other iterations. And they also, the same substance creates a basis for CRISPR gene editing, which is also experimental, but they can't wait to do it to you. And it's Bill Gates' favorite thing.
Well, it's not just do it to you. But, so we had, and Isaacson asked the first question. I think he wrote the book that just won the Pulitzer, and Dr. Doudna, right? About the whole situation with CRISPR, how she warned about it. Remember, she's been someone that's actually been warning about the problems with this technology. Just correct me if I'm wrong. I'll bring Toby in here in a second, and I want to keep you on. Did they just say that, and are you saying that this experimental technology is now what's going to go into children from babies to 5 years old?
Yes, I'm speaking about one of the four main ingredients in the mRNA vaccines. It's the lipid nanoparticles, which houses the mRNA. And what you just heard me read from a peer-reviewed journal is that nobody knows what will happen to it over time or how it works in the body. And you also heard me read that the same substance is what is going to be used or what is being used to deliver CRISPR targeted gene editing in vivo in people. And so I always felt like they were so insistent on getting this to everyone because this was and this is how Bill Gates thinks, right? It's how tech bros think. Let's have a platform and you can upload different iterations. So this same technology, which is so experimental, he just talked about that right there. We'll have a new one every as the virus, but they also have on our 6 months. Let me get Toby here. I just want to read something over at Brownstone today from Toby Rogers and Naomi, hang with us. This is from his article, The FDA's Future Framework for COVID Vaccines is a Reckless Plan. And I want to read, and I quote, Pfizer and Moderna have a problem. Their mRNA COVID-19 shots do not stop infection, transmission, hospitalization, nor death from SARS-CoV-2 virus. Over 500 million doses have been injected into Americans in the past 17 months, and these shots have no discernible impact on the course of the pandemic. Far more Americans have died of coronavirus since the introduction of the shots than before they were introduced. I want to bring in Toby Rogers now, writing over at the Brownstone Institute. Toby, you know, Naomi, she's drilling down on the details. They got the mRNA, but you got the CEO of Pfizer up there, or the Moderna. What is going on? Why can't we actually have a discussion that starts with your basic premise? We're still doing a test on this with the American people. Has this proved any efficacy at all? Toby Rogers.
The data is disappointing to say the least. These shots have massively underperformed. And now that there are new variants like Omicron, the vaccine efficacy is going negative. You're actually at greater risk of contracting coronavirus if you've had these shots than if you didn't have these shots. But Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, they own these agencies, right? They have what's called regulatory capture. And so these agencies essentially work for the pharmaceutical industry. And so you have this situation where these shots are not working, and everybody knows that. And so they're going to have to reformulate these shots. And they're going to change the mRNA, and they're going to change the ingredients. They're going to do something to try to make them work. But that creates a problem because you change a single molecule of mRNA in these shots, it's going to change health outcomes in ways that we cannot anticipate right now. And the problem for Moderna and Pfizer is that their data is terrible. Anybody who looks at their data comes away shocked and horrified by how bad their data is and by the fact that the FDA and CDC allow them to proceed even though the data is so terrible. So Pfizer and Moderna have figured out a way to rig the game in perpetuity. And they call it the future framework. It's so Orwellian, I don't even know how to describe it. But they're going to vote on this coming Tuesday, June 28th. The FDA is going to vote on this thing called the future framework. And here's how it works. The FDA is going to say, well, you need to reformulate these shots, but we're going to just call them biologically similar to existing shots that are already on the market. And so you can just skip clinical trials altogether. Don't even bother to do a human clinical trial. We'll just call it good. We'll just call it safe and effective. That's the future framework. That's the plan. It is insane. It is literally the worst idea in the history of public health to allow these companies that are already failing to now just skip clinical trials altogether. What we'll get is some test tube studies. We'll get some studies in mice, and they'll just say safe and effective, inject it into kids, inject it into adults, no questions asked. So the FDA this week pulled a bait and switch. Last week on the 14th and the 15th, they approved these shots for kids, both Moderna and Pfizer. Well, and some of these parents are going to run out right away to get these shots, you know, the hypochondriac parents and that sort of thing. But that's not the real market. The real market is this fall. The real market is the back to school market and the flu and cold season market for seniors. And by the time we hit the fall, it's not going to be these shots that they studied poorly this past week. It's going to be these new reformulated shots that completely skipped clinical trials altogether. This is everything that you talk about on your show, Steve, and that you've been working on for years. This is the deep state. This is the swamp. This is regulatory capture. Insiders at the FDA who are rewarding large donors to the Democratic Party by saying, you know what, I know we're a regulatory agency, but we're just going to let you skip out on clinical trials. We're just going to call it all good. Inject whatever you want into kids, and we're going to put the FDA seal of approval on this as if it was safe when it is not.
I got to bring in, that's so brilliant the way you laid it. Naomi Wolf, you warned us this day was coming, but it's almost too, it's not even Orwellian, it's Kafkaesque. It's like a nightmare. How can we combat that? We got to next, the framework's in, they've done a bait and switch. The rally to the troops here off of Toby Rogers. By the way, we're getting Toby's article up everywhere. I'm putting it on Getter, all of our platforms. It's a must read. Also a great article by Ian Miller over at Brownstone doing incredible work. Naomi, we're within a week of this happening. Tell us, rally the troops. What do we have to do?
I mean, I'm a bit stunned because this is the first time I've heard that explained so clearly. I knew about the future framework, but that was an excellent summary of how terrifying it is. I also wanted to ask if Toby thought, I'm beginning to think that the whole rollout of these useless COVID vaccines was really an experiment to get more data about lipid nanoparticle delivery for CRISPR. But that's a separate question, I suppose. It's very hard to rally the troops except to say that, people have, it's yet another piece in the puzzle. I think it's beyond the deep state, if you don't mind my saying, Toby. I think that there is a war against us. I can't forget that the 100% tech transfer in the SEC filings goes to China. 100% of the tech, meaning this solution, future solutions, future formulations of anything BioNTech creates, is in the hands of our adversary, and that they want our land and our water, and they don't want us. They want our energy sources. They don't want us. So this seems clearly the future framework. It's a brilliant, it's World War III. It's a brilliant way to make war against us and our children, inject us with whatever. We drop dead, sudden adult death syndrome, or we drop dead slowly, but the next generation will be impaired or struggling all the time to just live, and China will have the antidote. China has the injection, China will have the antidote. And China has a white paper saying that by 2049, they want to be the world's hegemon, and they'll be using public health and people's illnesses as their mechanisms in real time.
Toby, back. By the way, the book Body of Others, you got to get it. This is kind of the preamble to this madness that's going on right now. Naomi Wolf's, get it all at Amazon or at All Seasons Press. Toby, help me out here. We're going to have you guys back on tomorrow in the run up to this. What are people to do? We're great at getting people organized and getting them on top of a topic. This is kind of a bombshell. What are people to do here?
Yeah, it's outrageous. And as Dr. Wolf indicates, this is a threat to national security. This is a threat to the sovereignty of the United States. This is the gravest threat to America that I've seen in my lifetime. So I feel like there's a few things that we can do. So I have a call to action up on my Substack. And I have the email addresses for everybody at the FDA who's going to be voting on this matter on Tuesday. You can write to them directly and tell them exactly what you think and feel about this proposal. There's also official FDA comment on regulations.gov. I have a link on my Substack that you can go to in order to officially comment. But beyond that, I feel like everyone listening to this show who cares about health and children and the future of our country, you need to get on the phone with your elected officials and you need to say absolutely not. The FDA has lost its mind, and this future framework cannot pass on Tuesday. It must be rejected. And any Republican elected official who's listening to this, I need you to get on the phone with the FDA, with Peter Marks, at the FDA and say absolutely not. The future framework is junk science by definition because you are allowing pharmaceutical companies to skip clinical trials altogether. I cannot imagine a more reckless anti-science proposal from the regulatory state that's supposed to be protecting us. So Republican officials need to get on the phone with the FDA and say absolutely not.
I tell you, we're going to push this out on our platforms. I'm going to work with you guys after the show to get you back on tomorrow. Toby, how do people get to you? How do they get to the Substack? We've got it up on the site, but how do they get to you?
Yeah, so it's tobyrogers.substack.com. And the calls to action are there. You can find background on all these issues, and it'll give you the tools that you need to take action to save our country from the FDA that's completely out of control and completely reckless at this point.
We're going to we'll work with the producers, get you on tomorrow. Naomi Wolf, how do people get to the book? How do they get to you?
Thank you. So please order the book at Amazon.com now or allseasonspress.com. Please go to dailyclout.io. One of the things that we are doing is eventually suing the FDA. I wish it was immediately, but it can't be yet, and Pfizer. So please help us with that. And just like as I keep saying, you've got to tell your neighbor now. It's word of mouth, and thank you for your leadership on this, both of you.
We've got to push it out. Toby, amazing. Dr. Wolf, always fantastic. I'll talk to you guys after the show tonight because tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, I want to open with this. Captain Bannon, you're tomorrow. I want to talk about this event, also about women's sports, Title IX. Give me an update. Where do people go? Where's the site? What's going to happen?
You can go to ourbodiesoursports.com to register. The event, the rally is going to be tomorrow at Freedom Plaza starting at 11 a.m. And it's on the 50th anniversary of Title IX. And the rally, the whole mission behind it is to help preserve single-sex athletic competition. We want women to have the right to compete in their sports and not have transgender women come and dominate these sports.
This is going to be, they're going to be, over 40 speakers there. It's going to be starting at 11 o'clock and go for a couple hours?
It is. There's roughly 40 speakers, like you said, and it starts at 11, goes about 2 to 3 hours as of right now.
Captain Bannon, thank you very much. Look forward to seeing you on the show tomorrow, and we're picking up your speech. You're going to do live reporting for us from the event tomorrow. Okay, it is tomorrow morning. It's going to be packed. Supreme Court, more decisions. We don't know if it'll be Hobbs, but we'll see. I'm also going to try to get Toby and Dr. Wolf back. That's insane. Maureen Bannon will be live. We're going to have economics, geopolitics, all of it. See you tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. in the War Room.